The dominant astrological signature of this weekend is the full moon in Libra. But it isn't just an ordinary full moon. Nothing about the astrology right now is ordinary. Thank you for bearing with me as I got my camera adjusted. We should be all set now. This Libra full moon is a little extra interesting because it's occurring at the same time as the end of the Venus retrograde cycle. Also, it's the culmination of the eclipses along the Aries Libra axis. And that wraps up a story that started in 2023. So we've been doing a lot of learning where concerns Aries Libra themes. I will discuss that as we get into this report. And we've been doing that since 2023. So let's sort of take it a step at a time here. I want to discuss the Libra full moon, which occurs on, it's exact on the evening of the 12th Eastern time. It's at about 8:30. I'm just going to mark that full moon here on the chart. If you are into following along with that aspect of the astrology, my hope is that this channel is helpful for that, and that by following along with the chart, it helps for clarity and just for deepening your understanding of looking at charts. But if you just want to listen to the astrology and sort of not and ignore the whole looking at the chart side of things, my hope is that this will work for you as well. That's sort of the goal of these reports, for them to work for everybody. So this is our full moon in Libra that will occur on Saturday morning. And, you know, it's interesting that it's happening in exactly the time that Venus stations retrograde, or stations direct rather, because Venus is the ruling planet of the Libra full moon. I love a Libra full moon. It's an especially beautiful one because focus on Venus related themes is always a little bit nice. We're thinking about harmony and balance and beauty and love and peace. And it's a lot of these sort of good feeling type energies. And so when there's a full moon related to those energies, it's almost like a party for all those things. And it happening at the same time that Venus goes direct really suggests like a feeling of relief could come around the time of this full moon. A feeling of relief, a feeling of renewed clarity. You know, let me mark on here as well, this Venus going direct, because it's very significant. It really is happening like within an hour of the full moon, which is pretty exceptional. There's no reason it has to be that way. They're not connected to each other in any way. And you can see it's just such a busy sector of the chart, the Pisces sector and the Aries sector. So Venus going direct at this same time, whenever Venus stations direct after a retrograde, there can be sort of a feeling of relief, a feeling of clarity. There's been so much introspection for the last 40 days or so with Venus retrograde. And now as Venus goes direct, there can sort of be like a clearing of all of that. And you can feel sort of a renewed peace, a renewed harmony. But what's really significant here is that wherever we're having, this is the end, this is the first of, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I get excited, especially sometimes when I'm talking about eclipses. So let me just try to slow down. Sometimes Aries energy can make you kind of rush ahead too. And I have a lot of that happening for me right now. Anyway, eclipses. This full moon wraps up the eclipse cycle that we've just been a part of. So for the last 6 weeks or so, there's been a lot of activity. There's been a lot of activity in the collective, and there's probably been a lot of activity in your life as well. Usually when we have an eclipse season, we can look back to the beginning of the period and we can see how things are really different. It tends to be a period of extra movement and activity in the world and then in our own lives as well. It can be a time of course correction, an eclipse season, if you are doing something that needs shifting. Sometimes something can happen that moves you off of your path and onto a different one. So there can be movement like that. But also, if you are on the right path, if you are sort of in alignment with things, sometimes an eclipse season can sort of move things about faster, move things forward faster. So, sort of either way, it can feel like a very busy time, whether it's busy because things are changing or just because you're getting a lot done and there's a lot happening and there's a lot moving forward. So, we're at the end of this last eclipse season. That was 6 weeks. And it was a pretty intense one. It was an extra intense one. We are also at the end of the Aries Libra eclipse cycle for good, for real. This is really the end of it, because now we are having this lunation that is completely apart and separate from the nodes. That Aries eclipse that we just had, the new moon 2 weeks ago, is still active for the next 6 months on some level, and certainly for the next 2 weeks. However, with the nodes really moved in firmly to Pisces and Virgo at this point, and we've even had a couple of eclipses now along that axis, I think that what opened up in 2023 is starting to come together. So let's talk about that. Okay, this I feel like is the big thing I want to really discuss today. So the nodes began in Aries and Libra in 2023. In the spring of 2023, we started having activity there. But you might not have really noticed it until the fall of 2023. What started then that was new? If you know where Aries and Libra fall in your chart, you might be able to connect it to those themes. Or if you know what planets and points you have in Aries, Libra, you might be able to connect it to those themes. No matter what, though, no matter where it is in your chart, no matter whether or not you know your chart, there are a few big themes that we've all been working on since 2023 that we're sort of ready to fully integrate now, and we're ready to move on to new lessons. So let's talk about those. Wherever we have the South Node, we're letting go. We have the opportunity to let go of the negative sides of that zodiac signature. So since 2023, the South Node was working through Libra, and we were letting go of people-pleasing tendencies. We were letting go of overdoing it in terms of silencing our own voice in order to hear someone else's voice. That was definitely probably the most dominant theme. And learning to move away from people pleasing comes with so many different things, right? I feel like for so many people, and I think Uranus and Taurus was a part of this. I want to mark Uranus and Taurus because it's an important part of what's happening right now too, but I just kind of want to highlight it. Let's literally highlight it, since we have a highlighter tool. Because it really has been so significant. I don't like that. We've had some breakthroughs where concerns self-worth, right? When I was talking about people pleasing and releasing this tendency to people please, there are certain things that need to happen in order for that to happen. One of them is increasing self-worth, because if our worth is coming from making other people happy only, then that's not a good reason to do things to help other people. If we can more be doing things to help other people from a place of true alignment. And now we're moving toward Aries, talking about Aries a little bit here, because wherever the North Node is, we should be moving toward the positive sides of that signature as the nodes are moving through like they were since 2023. And this is all wrapping up now this weekend. We're integrating these lessons. The North Node in Aries, one of the highest vibrations of Aries is being there for other people, is feeling, Aries is known as this very independent starter. Yes, that's true. But I think one of the highest vibrations for Aries can be feeling so tapped into others, so connected to others. There can be sort of a peace with that allows Aries to really work on others' behalf, on their own behalf and on others' behalf. Work for what's right, work for what they've determined is right, work toward doing what they can do to make something better. When service to others comes from that place, it's even better. And it's interesting because now we have the South Node working through Virgo, and we're working on releasing perfectionism and over planning and overdoing. So I feel like that's such a great thing to be working on right after releasing these Libra signatures. But there are a couple other things with the Libra signature that I think is important. Since 2023 and through to this weekend, we may be feeling a culmination of all of this, an integration of all these lessons. Since then, another one of the things we've been able to have the opportunity to let go of that Libra can do is indecisiveness. And, I think we don't talk about that as much as a negative side of Libra, because it doesn't feel that serious, right? Some of the negative signatures of planets can be, an overexpression of anger, like a terrible temper, or, lying. So when you hear something like, well, it's kind of hard to get Libra energy sometimes to make a decision about where to go to dinner, it doesn't feel that serious. And within ourselves, if we have indecisiveness, it might not be the trait that we're really that worried about changing. We might go to a handful of other things before we decide to work on releasing our indecisiveness, because it doesn't feel that important. But I think it's connected to all of these themes that I'm sort of talking about here. Being more decisive is definitely an Aries quality. Aries doesn't even really need to make a decision in order to start moving forward. Aries will just move forward, not even knowing where it's going. And I always think of two images for this energy. This energy that we've all been integrating for the last couple of years. Think of the energy of a match and, just that spark. It's like, who knows what's going to happen with this fire next? It's just a little lit match. But it's there was no fire and now there is fire. And that's amazing. And that's what Aries can do in terms of getting things started. And you may have had some of that in the last couple of years yourself. I also think of the image of a flower or any green shoot that's sort of starting to rise up out of the ground around this time of year. If you live around where I do, in the Northeast, in the U.S., or in many other places as well, here it's spring, early spring, and we're having those first sort of green shoots come up out of the ground. And you don't know necessarily what it is. Is it a flower? Is it a bush? What kind of flower? Is this grass? We don't, it's those original little buds of life, the way that the trees sort of turn red at first before they get green. You can't really see where it's going. You don't really know what this is going to turn into. And it looks really different in the very beginning than it's going to look in the end. But Aries starts it. Aries gets it moving. Aries gets it going. So indecisiveness, releasing, dawdling, and not being sure, and not wanting to get started until we really have all the pieces in play. We've been letting go of some of that. We've been learning how to do it in a more Aries way and just charge forward. Just start. Start before you really know what you're doing. So I do think the people-pleasing piece is the most significant, and the listening to our own inner voice. I haven't really mentioned that yet. Let's talk about that, because that's so major with all of this Aries energy. We're coming into that more and more. um, this season, this cycle, these next few months, kind of these next few years. So, yeah, really listening. Aries energy helps us learn. We've been learning since 2023 how to really listen to our own inner guidance, our own inner voice, learning to move toward what lights you up and move away from what feels bad. Trusting, learning to trust yourself, knowing that you know someone else doesn't know better, just because they say they do, or just because they're giving you advice. Being able to rely on your own inner voice more quickly, more thoroughly, having that sort of that good relationship with yourself. It's been all about relationships lately. The last few years with these nodes in Aries Libra, the last few months with Venus retrograde in Aries, it's been all about relationships, relationships with others, and our relationship with ourselves. And there's been sort of a lot going on with all of these things. So, what started in October of 23, or maybe even April of 23, that feels like it's sort of more solid now? Are you integrating that story? Are you integrating some of those lessons that I just was talking about? What have you learned about yourself versus others? What have you learned about your relationship with others, your relationships with yourself? How are you releasing people pleasing and really listening to your own voice? So, there's a lot else going on in this chart as well. We also have Mars basically in trine to all of these planets here in Pisces. It's a little hectic. We have Mars right here at 27 degrees in a sort of direct trine to Mercury in the North Node in Pisces, and then in a loose trine to Venus and Saturn. See, Venus is conjunct Saturn at the time of this eclipse. I don't like that at all. Venus is conjunct Saturn at the time of this eclipse. Oh, that's better. I'm sorry if I didn't have that large the whole time. And that adds a seriousness to all of this. It's like, yes, we're having this beautiful full moon that feels like such a party, but there's something so serious about it. And there's a taking of responsibility for our part in things. And there's an assigning of responsibility for others' part in things. We can see we're taking relationships seriously. We're taking Venusian themes seriously. We're taking our harmony and our peace seriously and our relationship patterns. I was thinking actually about the Netflix adolescence series that has been going around that everyone's watching, that I watched as well. And astrologically, it kind of makes sense with what's happening right now. We're talking about relationship patterns as Venus stations direct this weekend. I will link to a video here at the end of this video. I'm not done yet, but when we do get to the end, I'll link to a video that I did specifically about the Venus station yesterday, where talking about how we are getting some clarity and some new information about relationship themes. There's also a lot happening as we have this harmonious trine between Venus and Mars, that sort of masculine, feminine stories and energy. So we're getting a lot of good information. There's some clarity coming through, but it's very heavy. It's very serious. And there's something about all of it for the future, for the long-term future. And I don't know, I just thought it kind of made sense with adolescence. I don't want to drill into that too much. But it's funny because I made that video about Venus going direct yesterday morning and I hadn't watched it yet and I really didn't know anything about it. And then I watched the whole thing yesterday kind of threw my plans for the day off. I watched the first episode, taking just a little break at lunchtime, and um, then had to watch the second hour during dinner, and stay up late finishing finishing the whole thing. So um, it sucked me in like everybody, and there is sort of like there's just a heaviness to the sky right now. So anyway, watch that video from yesterday. I felt like a lot of the things that I was talking about there kind of made sense with that series. But in terms of the astrology of this weekend, the fact that Mars is trining all of these planets means it's a great time to get a lot done, first of all, because Mars trine Saturn is very productive. And I've been saying this over and over again, but uh, it really is such a good time to take care of things, to check things off the list. You'll find you move through projects a little bit more quickly and easily than you usually would, right? So it's sort of like if you're the kind of person who gets your best work done at a certain time of day, you might try to do your hardest tasks then. And this is a weekend where we have this setup where it's a great time to get stuff done. So anything that you need to do, it might go a little bit faster than usual this weekend. And there's a lot more to this Mars trine. I actually spoke about it in quite a bit of detail in my April astrology horoscope reports, best viewed for your rising sign. Those are on my channel. But please notice that Uranus is involved in this trine as well. And I mentioned this in the horoscopes too, but just to say here while we're talking about all this astrology, look, Uranus is at 25 degrees too. So that's forming a sextile to houses away, a sextile to Mars, and a sextile to all of these planets. So Uranus is throwing some curveballs into the mix. Some things you weren't really prepared for, weren't really expecting, something surprising. Um, everything isn't clear. Everything isn't clear. And that's true as well, just with all this Pisces. Mercury conjunct the North Node in Pisces means that this is all important and this is all long term. This isn't the stuff that is happening right now, really throughout this period, late March, early through mid-April. Really, it's like from late February through mid-April, end of April. The stuff that's happening then, the things that are being set up and established, the ideas that we're having, the relationship patterns that are being cleared, the things that we're letting go of, none of it is a short-term thing. It's all a very long-term thing. We have the outer planets changing signs right now. There are so many astrological indicators that we're moving into a new era, as a collective and in our lives. And I think by the time we get to midsummer, we're going to really be seeing we're going to really feel like we're in this new era, like we're in this new place as a collective and in our own lives. And there's a lot of good there. So I take comfort in that maybe a lot of this heaviness that we're moving through is helping to prepare us, not just for something that is new and different and future and technology and all of the things, but that we're also being prepared for a future that's really bright, where we're going to be letting in some different blessings, some different positive aspects than we have before. And it's funny how that can be a challenge. It makes me think about Uranus and Taurus again. It makes me think about Taurus energy and how hard it can be for Taurus to change. And with Uranus working through here for so long, Taurus energy, wherever we have Taurus in our chart, sometimes it can be a place where we don't allow for change. Even if the change is for the good, we still sometimes say no to it. because that's how much that Taurus energy kind of likes to be stable and stay the course, that it can even say no to things being better. Um, but Uranus has been helping us work on that too lately, helping us really release um, a tendency to limit ourselves. It's connecting with me again to these Venus ideas about self-worth, you know. And now Venus and Mercury are going to move into Aries. And we have Neptune newly here. You can't even see any of these planets now. And I'm not going to mark anything else because it's just getting ridiculous. We have layer on top of layer. But it's because everything's happening in the same part of the sky. But just to say, now we have Neptune in Aries, and we will have Venus and Mercury both moving direct into Aries soon. So opening up into Aries energies in a different way, hopefully into the highest vibration of them, right? Which is being able to start things, being that match, being that spark, being that green shoot, listening to your own inner voice, listening to your own inner guidance, not overdoing it with the people pleasing, instead serving others from a place of feeling deeply connected to them. And so it's natural to give. You don't feel like you're losing anything by giving, by helping, by contributing your voice and caring for yourself sort of along the way as well. This weekend is a great time to reflect back on these Libra Aries themes, even simple ones like releasing that indecisiveness, being more decisive. It's a great weekend to see what kind of information you're getting. With Venus going direct, and we have Mercury direct now too, Saturn's there, North Node's there, we're getting a lot of information. It may feel like a deep breath, it may feel like a moment of clarity, all of those things, yes. And also, it's a time to listen and see what comes in. So slow down a little bit. I think that usually full moons are very, very busy, but we're wrapping up the eclipse season, which is great. Really, it's sort of another 2 weeks that it's still a bit active, but we've now had a lunation in Libra Aries that isn't an eclipse, and things will be settled down compared to the last 2 weeks, I think. So it's a great time to integrate, to relax, to see what's coming up for you, to pay attention to your ideas, pay attention to your feelings, your dreams, whatever information is coming in from yourself, from others. And it's a heavy time, but it's a meaningful time. We're really setting things up for the long term here. And we've learned a lot, and we've grown a lot lately. I just want to thank everyone for being here so much. Thank you, Monique, and thank you, Louie. Good morning to everyone. If you're watching this live, if you're watching this later, hello. I hope you have a wonderful weekend too. I'm going to link to a video here about Neptune newly entering Aries because it's really important, but it's hard to talk about right now. And I'm going to put a link. I'm going to link to a video here. If you like this video, you might like that as well, about Neptune turning direct moving into Aries, Neptune moving into Aries, and why it's difficult to talk about right now. And I'm also going to link to the video that I did about Venus stationing direct. That's happening this weekend on the 12th at the same time as this full moon. I just wanted to do a video where it was the focus. So I'm saying some of the same things that I'm saying here, but sort of expanding on them in a different way. And I just want to thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll be back again soon. Thanks. Have a wonderful weekend.